It's Sunday, time for a Shed Talk. Grab your beverage of choice, let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Jam Shed and this week's episode of Shed Talk. It's Sunday, and while I absolutely love my time on Sunday to spend with family and friends and all the rest of it, I like checking in with you all as well. And so for those of you that are new to the channel and are like, what is a Shed Talk? It's kind of like a TED Talk, but not 15 minutes. It's whatever it takes for me to get through the couple of topics that I typically want to discuss. And I might pick up things that are in my feeds or things that are happening in the gear space in general. Often it's a little bit of a recap between what other videos I've shot and circling back and all the rest of it. So for this Shed Talk, there are a couple of things I wanted to just put out there and have some conversation. Again, this is passive content, so you feel free to click right off if you're like, I don't want to listen to Ray talk for the next 5 to 10 minutes, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. So the topics we're going to cover today are quite simple. I want to recap the Karnivore V30 Shootout video just a little bit. Secondarily to that, I want to talk about what's upcoming for next week or maybe even the following week with some other videos around that same vein. This Grudge Match / Tone Chase Shootout videos. Had a great time with that. And then the last topic I want to cover is one that is near and dear to my heart. We lost Neil Peart from Rush, or Peart, if you say it correctly. And that was hard for me because I'm a drummer first. And I should say I play drums. I can't quantify myself as a drummer. Again, I'm really careful about that. Those of you that are putting in 24/7 work and this is what you do full time, you're a drummer. But I play the drums and I have a passion for drums and all things music related. Anyway, I'll cover that in a little bit, but that Rush is going on tour. So let's jump right into the first topic, which is recapping the Karnivore and the V30 Shootout. Could you have not asked for a more awesome comparison? I had so many emotions after watching the video 50 times because I was like, it was really fun to shoot, but secondarily to go back and actually watch the content and think about like, okay, what differences did I inherently hear? Were they that far away? Did Christian just recreate the V30? And the answer to that question from my perspective was no, absolutely not. Do I feel like they're distant relatives or cousins or something like that? 100%. I want to note something about the V30 that I really just had an epiphany listening to it between the G12H Shootout versus the V30 and the Karnivore versus the V30. And a great question was presented by a subscriber. Thank you for subscribing, by the way, and I greatly appreciate all of you who have subscribed and are on this journey, and I'll thank you again later. But the question was quite simple. Which V30 did you use? And my response was, I was blown away that someone would be this level of nerdy alongside of me in this vintage 30 game to go, yeah, there's like some serious debate about how great some of these vintage 30s are and how coveted they should be. And the Nolly Get Good Christian Cola Audio Cult video, that just had me hooked, and I have not left the V30 since. And so yes, it was a fair question to ask. So which V30 did we hear in that? And I was like, one of my favorites. It's the 1995. I got it recently, and it just sounds awesome. It's one of my favorite V30s. That's why I bring it to the show. But I have many V30s that are all equally good and really fit the bill. It's just how much EQ do I want to do on one side or the other. In fact, oftentimes it's hard for me to choose. But he was asking the question because he was thinking the same thing that some of you probably are also thinking, like, hey, is this one of those 2006 to 2000 whatever 15 20 whatever year you want to insert where they were made in China? I know production has since moved back to the UK, or maybe they're still being produced in China as well, but I'm just going to be clear on this. Like, now that I've had some time with these V30s, yes, there are differences, and yes, there are inherent things that you will get from one versus the other. And I think there's a lot of nuance there, none of which I am going to unpack here. I would just say the V30 you have is probably the V30 you could work with. And if it isn't, then certainly you can enlist that whole Gibson mantra if you want to. And this is not a slight to Gibson. I love Gibson. It's find the one that fits you. When I was at Guitar Fest, I played this $10,000 or $12,000 Gibson Les Paul And I was like, oh, this one's not for me. And it wasn't that it wasn't well crafted. It had nothing to do with that. It was the neck. The neck felt like literally a baseball bat in my hand. And I couldn't tell you for the life of me exactly which one it was. I just looked down and went, whoa, that's a lot of money for something that I wouldn't enjoy. And that goes back to something I said early in the channel when I featured the Dean as the first video I dropped here, which was, if it looks good, sounds good, and it fits your hand and it just feels right, then it's right. You don't have to worry about whether or not the nameplate on the top of that headstock is something of significance if it feels right to you. And I want to point back to, there are a bunch of people that have jumped on a train to give this very, very deep nostalgic and almost mythical status to certain instruments. Here's one for you: Eddie Van Halen's guitar. You know, that red, black, and white one that everybody is doing these crazy builds to perfection, like even down to the quarter and getting the right reflector and all of that. Like, I was down that rabbit hole too, so that should show you that I've been there. But here's the best part about that. When I think about Eddie's guitar, I'm like, it was a dumpster fire guitar that he put together that he said, hey, listen, I need something that's going to work for me. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm chasing all of these things that everybody else is doing. He didn't do that. He obeyed the one rule, that there are no rules. And I think he's the one that even said this. I probably have inadvertently taken this rule from him from Jump Street. And if I have, then I'm glad, because he has it right. And I will say this now that I'm down this deep talking rabbit hole about the Vintage 30 and being authentic to what resonates with you. It could be an expensive guitar. If someone will own that $12,000 guitar, I guarantee it. And the thing is that will fit them. And that is what I challenge in all of the things that we're doing here. It is not about how I did it, what I did, and if it's perfect or no. It is totally all about one thing: being curious and exploring. And I did it that day, and I played that guitar. And would I play it again? Absolutely. If someone said you can have that for $1, I would be handing them the dollar bill and say, no, it's not about the money. It's about what does it mean to you? And for some of you, you've gone your entire life and said, the guitar for me that I know I will have arrived, because I know that headstock is going to tell me some things are going to be the way they are supposed to be. And maybe that's your positioning. But if that's you, do it. If you feel that way, go for it. But I'm positioning just another side of that to say, hey, it doesn't really have to be the headstock, what's on there. It really has to deal with what is this instrument doing for you and how does it resonate. But it could mean what's on the headstock. So allowing me to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, what I'm truly saying is, be curious, because you never know what you might be surprised by. I was surprised by playing a $10,000 to $12,000 guitar at Guitar Fest at Sweetwater, going, yeah, this one's probably not for me. It had nothing to do with its quality. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the second I picked it up. And did I play it for 5 minutes? I did. I gave it 5 minutes. I probably could have given it an hour if I had the opportunity to do it. It wouldn't have changed my thought at the end of the day, because it just wasn't for me. So back to what I meant, where I was at with the V30, which was specifically around how there are different eras. You have UK versus Chinese, and then you have the era specific changes that would happen naturally just because of manufacturing around the cones and the pulp, and all of that is very dynamic. It really is. You know, you would have shifting in manufacturing, which can change how cones are made. I think about it like fabric. You have different weights of fabric. You go buy sheets, there are different weights. I know this because recently I bought sheets and I didn't know that there was a difference. Well, if you get the lightweight ones, or you're probably not going to be, they're not going to last forever because they're just lightweight. And then anyway, so you get where I'm going with that. Same thing, I think, in an easy way to give an analogy to speakers is, there are different densities, there are different cone types, there are different manufacturing types, there's the dust caps and the glue, and there's so much that can go, the magnet weight, all of these things that can change and shift just a little bit. And I've noticed one thing about speakers, and I have quite a few of them, if I'm being completely honest, that I can, in one cab, I can go all the way around and mic all of them, and granted I get the slant and does some different things, but let's just say for the sake of argument, they all sound different. And I could say up to 20% different. And what do you mean? I'm sure you're going, well, what do you mean? What does 20% different really mean? What does that translate to? It translates to, it could have a little bit more top end edge. So some people would call that fizziness. It could be that the mid-range is a little more forward. Maybe it's a little more focused. And so the question of what speaker were you using was fitting, because again, as you can tell, I got super passionate about that and rambled for however long that was. And I apologize for those of you, just click forward to the next topic. But I think it was a fair question to ask, what vintage 30 were you using? And the reason why I chose that one wasn't because it was one of my favorites. It's just the one I loaded into that cabinet. Could have been a number of different ones if I so chose to have done that, but it was there. And that speaks to the spirit of this channel. I just grabbed what was available and put it in there. And so I'll say this eventually, and I do have a quad, I think they're 06. I don't hold my feet to that, but definitely between 06 and 09. And I will do a shootout between those, because I actually think that quad, the made in China ones that I have, sound great. I don't have an issue with them. And in fact, having some experience with lots of different V30s, honestly, I've not run into a terrible one that sounds terrible that I can work. But again, take that with a grain of salt, because I'm a huge G12 T75 fan. Believe it or not, that was my speaker until I was introduced to the V30. And I think this last point that I'm going to speak about is going to tell you why. So as you can see, I like rectifiers, Mesa Boogie rectifiers. This first one up here, that's a dual rectifier. The next one below that is a triple rectifier, and then this is a tremo verb, and they're all the 2-channel, right? Because that's the rabbit hole I went down, and I had to do it. You know, so I went down that rabbit hole, and I will tell you that they all sound a little bit different, but they're all rectifiers at the end of the day. And my good friend, which I will get his amp on this show at some time, but he's got a blacked out 3-channel that I was like, this is ridiculous. I got these 2 channels, and it's better than all 3 of them. It is awesome. So I've heard someone say, maybe it was fluff, the rectifier that you want to have is the one that you have in front of you, and you just go with it. And I don't disagree with that for a second. Not at all. They're all great. But here's what I did notice. One of the tones that I've chased my entire life is the rectifier tone. And I didn't know it until I started to do some deep research on it. And then come to find out, thanks to Nolly and Christian's video, is that, you know, the Vintage 30 is kind of doing this special thing that happens. And if you go back and listen to the G12H anniversary versus V30 shootout, it's evident what's happening there. And you hear it in this Karnivore video as well. There's one huge difference I pulled out between the Vintage 30 and every speaker so far that I've heard. And I'm going to be curious if that exists. And that was the thing that I was hearing my entire life that I'm like, that's what I'm missing. And it's actually a Vintage 30 thing more than it is a rectifier thing. I have a JCM TSL 100 sitting here that I modded to the gills. It's got mercury magnetics, 4 inches of iron for the output transformer and power transformer. I did some mods on the inside, like I put in a choke, so that helped a lot. Man, and then I fixed the bias drift with the, I think it's a version 20 update to the PCB board. Like, it is amazing. The last thing I got to do is I have to change the heaters. I'm going to convert those to DC to get rid of some of the noise that you're getting clean. All of that to be said, though. I put that thing to the test. I fired it up through my V30 cab that used to be in here. And I was like, how is this more rectifier than a rectifier? And then it hit me. It's because of the V30s. And they do this one thing that I now can quantify, maybe with some adjectives. So I'm going to try to unpack that here. And I would encourage you to go back and watch both of those videos and you'll hear it. Okay, here we go. Here's what it does. It roars. I know that sounds crazy, but if you listen to it, it has this R. That's the only way I could ever explain it. But it's got this R. Yeah, there you go. It does this R thing, almost like a pirate. Yep, that's what I sounded like right there. Totally was a pirate. And a hat, and yeah. Okay, so, but it does that. And what happens is that roaring type sound that I don't know why I'm doing this, but that roaring type sound that it does is what sets it apart. It almost makes the mix become more stereo. So when you listen to that speaker, it seems to just, like the Karnivore and the G12H felt very close, like they were coming right at you. And then when you listen to the V30, you hear this mid expansion that becomes very rich, and it's got this R, but it seems to carry a little wider. That wasn't because I was doing something unique in the mix. I wasn't. It's just the V30 recorded 2 different guitar tracks, and that's it. There's nothing special going on there, except for the speaker does that. And that's what I've noticed about all the V30s. They all have this R type thing. So if you want to go back and listen, and you're listening to that and just go R alongside of it, you'll catch it. And this one that I have, this 95, seems to also be really nice in the mid-range. So it's really exacerbated, but that was the tone. That R, that arching, expansive, very rich tone was what I was looking for my entire life. That's what I had been hearing in all these different, and if you listen, you go back to anyone that's using it, you hear it. And it's almost like I can't not hear it. But now when I'm listening to these other speakers, that's what I'm listening for. Does it do that? Does it have that rich like R-type driven mid-range, and that's the only way I can explain it. Someone else can probably come up with way better adjectives than I have here, but I just think that's what it does. And if you listen to the two of them, you go back, and I had a hard time at first going, what do I like about the Karnivore versus what do I like about the V30? And I know that's a parochial question. What I mean by that is I was trying to understand what the differences were, and I was almost having a hard time. At one point, I thought I had the same speaker for both of them because they were so close. And then it was very apparent after listening several times that I could hear that bite, that R bite in the mid-range, and then the focus punch. And I would say the Karnivore, from my perspective, seemed to have a much more cut-through mid-range. It was tight, it was focused, it almost came right at you. Like you were just taking a left straight punch right to the face. It wasn't even a jab. It wasn't even a hook. It was like you didn't even see it. And pow, you're getting hit with it, where I feel like the Vintage 30 comes around that. And then when the blend happened, I was like, magic. It's magic. I think that could be the end all be all tone for me the rest of my life, and I would be more than happy, because you get this great punch and clarity coming at you, but then you get the richness of the V30 behind it. So if you were quad tracking, that could be an incredibly powerful combination. Now, I want to be clear. Nobody needs to part ways with their money to do these things. I think inherently you have to listen and make the best assumptions for what you want, and I'm not encouraging you to part ways with your money. What I'm trying to say is that the V30 is unique in that, and I finally am now able to listen with my ears. Sometimes it takes a while to listen. You know, sometimes it takes years for people to be able to tune a guitar without a tuner. Like, you know it's in tune, you know it's not in tune after some years of practicing. And I've been listening to these V30s for a couple years now, and I can pull that out. And now I know what I actually need to tune my ear to going, what do I hear, what don't I hear? All right, that was super long-winded. So for those of you that stuck with me on that, I appreciate it. But my passion runs deep for these speakers, and that's what makes this series for me incredibly exciting, and we're going to continue. Now, we'll segue off of that, and we're going to head back into the speaker territory a little bit, because I want to talk very briefly, and I mean briefly, about what's upcoming. I have lots of options for us to explore. I think I'm going to continue down this rabbit hole of the V30 versus all of the speakers that I have, which is quite a few. I mean, I'm looking at the wall here. I've got the 90th anniversary up here. I've got a G12 65 reissue. I've got a Greenback. I've got a Hempback. I've got what else? Well, we already did a G12H, and I've got some of those 2003 Marshall. They're not Marshall. They're called Marshall Vintage MF. They're in the Mode 4 cab. I guess they're supposed to be like regular Vintage 30s, but I have a set of those. I had the G12 T75 as well. I have the G12 35s. I have, a bunch. Lots. That's just off the top of my head. But there's lots that we can check out and shoot out. And I'm hoping to get a DV77 here soon. I would love to shoot that out against a V30 and eventually then do a Karnivore versus the D70 or DV77. Because in Christian's most recent video, he did note that the DV77, or Eminence noted that the DV77 is similar. It's kind of, again, a distant cousin, so I would love to hear how those sound against each other. But in the next upcoming videos, certainly keep an eye out for the 4x12 and V30 Carnivore Shootout. So I'll move them from the 2x12 cabs into a 4x12 cab in the top positions, and I'll be curious to see how that sounds. And then I think the next one I would like to do is maybe I'll grab a Greenback. That was a viewer's comment as to test out the Karnivore against the V30. I'm sorry, a Karnivore against the Greenback and see what that sounds like. And I think that would be a cool comparison. So hang on for that. But that's the nature of where I'm heading with this. Got lots of options, and certainly put a comment down in the comment section, and I would love to hear what you guys think after I've named and rattled off a whole bunch of them. And I said that was going to be brief, and it certainly was not, but thank you for sticking with me. And our last topic, we are here. The most important topic of the day that I wanted to talk about is this awesome announcement that is all over the place. And if you've been living under a rock and I'm revealing it here to you for the first time, let me be the one to do it then. Rush out of nowhere. I thought they were done. Honestly, I didn't think they were going to come back. And I will say Rush is on my Mount Rushmore of bands, 100%. And I would say that my Mount Rushmore struggles to have the other representations. I can't, but I can tell you for sure, Rush is number one on that. They will always be number one on that for me. And it's strange, and it's a long story as to why. No, it's not strange. It's actually quite simple. When I was young, I was introduced to them. I didn't understand it, and then I listened, and then I listened, and then I was hooked. And as a drummer, Neil is my number one. Neil will forever be one of the most influential drummers for me and my pathway. I spent hours learning Rush tunes. Tom Sawyer, are you kidding me? My mind was blown when I was playing it like this, and I'm like, I can't even do it. And I find out he's doing it with one hand. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I felt the same way when I heard that the song Blind, and I was playing the ride with two hands, and then I watched the video and I was like, he's playing it with one. I don't even know how. For those of you who are drummers, you will understand how that unlocks something for you. I mean, just amazing music, amazing arrangements. And Neil, I mean, I have a tribute Neil kit for this reason. And in fact, not only, I mean, I'm a huge Rush fan. Like here, let's see here. My sticks that I use on the regular are the Pro Mark Neil Peart sticks. And I have a use set right here because they're the sticks I use. I have Geddy's Tech 21, his signature pedal. This is one of the ones that was released recently that he signed. So I have Geddy's autograph, which blew me away. By the way, Geddy is on my Mount Rushmore for bass players, by the way. I even have his bass book because I'm a guitar nerd. I love gear, right? So you can't love gear and not check out Geddy Lee's expansive collection. Hey, Geddy, by the way, if you're ever watching and, you want to host me for a tour and an interview, I would be over the moon to do that. Not fanboying, but I would love to have a nerdy chat with you any day. But I'm a huge Geddy Lee fan. In fact, one of my bass guitars that I built, because I went down this rabbit hole of, learning every instrument, guitar, bass, and drums for rock and heavy music, and I wanted to learn the craft inside and out. So whether it was setups, building, and I wind my own pickups. That has been something I've picked up. Yes, I can wind my own pickups. I'm not fantastic at it yet. It's a growing art for me. But early on, I wanted Geddy's tone because I was just digging what he was doing, and specifically in the song Limelight, I was really enjoying that, and Moving Pictures, one of my favorite albums ever. Like, anyway, I just was digging a lot of his tone, and then when he moved from the Rickenbacker to the Fender, his number one, I really, the jazz bass is one of my go-tos. So is the P bass. I can't pick one. Please don't be mad at me about that. I love them both. But anyway, long story short, I know in his number one that one of his pickups went out and he sequestered an expert pickup winder, and those pickups actually exist because now they're being wound as his pickups. So you can relatively get in the ballpark of his tone, right? Because it's Geddy. I'm not going to be Geddy. I'm going to be me on the bass, but I wanted to be in the ballpark. And so anyway, I built this bass. Well, I didn't build it. I bought it. It's a Chinese-made bass, and I made it awesome. That's all I'm going to say. You'll see it on here at some point. I'll feature it on the show, but it was a super cheap bass, and it's incredible. It is my number one jazz bass out of all of the jazz bass. Anyway, I love Geddy Lee. I love Alex and Neil. Will forever have a space in my heart and my drum world, and they are my number one. And there's lots of small incremental people that come behind that, and influential bands that come behind that, but Rush holds the number one spot. So I'm super excited to hear they're going on tour. And again, if you didn't know that, they are back and they've got a new drummer, and that is so exciting to me. And I cannot wait to see some of the performances that are coming on live, like on YouTube and all the rest of it as they tour. I couldn't be more excited. In fact, I had this, when they said they were announcing a new drummer, I got really excited because I thought for sure I knew who it was, and I didn't. But I am going to do some research on her, and I'm not going to butcher her name here. I'll let you guys. I know it's it's Anika Nellis, I think is how you say it. So if I've said that wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm not looking at anything. I just remember from the article that I was reading. Anyway, all of that to be said, there was a part of me where I was like, is it Mike? Tell me it's Mike. And for those of you who don't know who Mike is, it's Mike Portnoy from the other band that I absolutely love, which is Dream Theater. And while I get it, it's Dream Theater, and Mike is back with Dream Theater, which again is even more exciting. And not to take anything away from previous drummers that have, the one previous drummer, and if you don't know who Mike Mangini is, then you should check out Mike Mangini because he's phenomenal. And but Mike Portnoy returning to Dream Theater was like a dream come true for me. And so I've been watching a lot of the videos of him, back under the kit, and then the Drumeo stuff. It's just been awesome. Anyway, this has gotten way out of control and way longer than I wanted it to. So we can land the plane on all of this. I hope you guys have actually enjoyed this passive content and my excitement about it. And feel free to comment on any of this stuff. And for those of you that are out in the ether, just remember the whole purpose of a Shed Talk is just me talking. It's having fun. And this is my time to just debrief and do the thing I don't get to do outside of talking to you all, which is talk about gear and be excited about it. And hearing back from you is always a joy. So one other thing, I have a little surprise after we conclude our time here today, which is coming up very quickly. There was a great comment, and I think it was a good one. There was one really kind of ruminating and on more of the time to hear some of these breakdowns, specifically around when I do the shootout. I play the guitar in real time, so you guys actually get a real-time version of it, and then I did the jam and left it at that. Well, for the Karnivore speaker, I actually teetered on including just the jams, the little jam that I put together. I was just gonna do those guitars isolated so you could just hear that, and I waffled a bit. I decided to leave it out because I didn't want the video to go over like this one is, and so I left it out. But I do have it, and I thought, hey, listen, for an extra bonus feature when we close out here today, stay tuned, and I will include the jam with the Karnivore versus the V30, and I'll have the guitar stems only from the jam, and then I'll let the jam play after that. So if you want to check that out and hear those speakers independently, you will really hear that R sound I was describing before by hearing the stems, and then you'll really hear the difference between the V30 and the Karnivore and how it's got some more forward punch to it. And so if you want to stick around for that, please feel free to. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hey, we hit a milestone, 50 subscribers, and I think we're more than that now. I think 55 the last time I looked. I am blown away by that. I cannot thank all of you enough for tuning in and wanting to just kind of be a part of what's happening upstairs here and that madness, because it's never ending. I think my brain's going 100 miles a minute on all of these things, and if you just listen to this video as long as we've been going for 26 minutes, you would know that I can talk about this for hours. And maybe one of these days I'll have to jump on live when we get a little bit bigger and folks can tune in and participate and have some open conversation, and I can just, introduce myself to the community and have some fun with it. So all of that to be said, listen, it's Sunday. We're at 26 minutes and some odd seconds now, heading into 27 minutes, and I just appreciate all of you. I appreciate those of you who are subscribing and tuning in weekly. My hope is to keep this going, and you know what? It's fun and inspiring. So if this didn't do any of that for you today, get inspired. Grab a guitar, get on the drum kit, play the keyboard, do something. Have a great weekend, and I wish you all well into the work week. Keep an eye out. I'm not sure when I'll drop another Grudge Match or how quickly that will come right now. Keep an eye out for posts. I'll put something up and give you guys a little bit more of a timeline so you know when that's coming, but there should be something this week, and certainly we'll be back for a Shed Talk. So with all of that, if you want to stay tuned for the Karnivore V30 stems, please do. And outside of that, have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.